What's up, everybody? Jack here from Half Chrome, and yes, I got my hands on one of these guys today. This is the DJI Air 2S, and it's a pretty fantastic machine. Now, I have not had a full chance to give a full review. Right, I've flown two batteries on this thing. I'm gonna go out after dinner and fly a few more, but I did get to test most of its features. So, I thought I would go live and ask you guys, what is it that you guys want to see? So stay tuned. I will be back in 2 minutes. Come with some questions, and we'll get after it. Okay, here we go. Yes, got my hands on the Air 2S and flew it a little bit and wanted to see what you guys think. First, let me just talk a little bit about this machine and how it compares to the Air 2. Now, right off the bat, the first thing you notice are these sensors up front, but that is not it's not the best part about this. This camera is legit, right? This is the real deal. Now, it's a 1-inch sensor, which means you're going to get better performance specifically in low light situations. Now, people are saying, well, wasn't the Mavic Air 2 48 megapixels, right? 20 is less than 48 because this is 20. But the answer really is no. So the Mavic Air 2 uses a quad bear sensor, right? Which basically, the short of it is it multiplies each pixel by 4. So you got a 12 megapixel camera multiplied by 4, you get 48 megapixels. It does some nice things specifically when you're using HDR video. But when it comes down to it, it just never stood up to the 1-inch sensor on the Mavic 2 Pro. And that's going to be the same with this guy. This 1-inch sensor is a better camera. Other things that are better about this is you get the 10-bit color. So if you're into color grading, it's just going to be easier and better than that of the Air 2. Now, you also have a higher bit rate. So you're getting 150. That is your write speed versus 120 on the Air 2. I'd have to double check on some of those other drones. But, something that we've done, let me just throw this up here. Something that we do on our website. So if you're not familiar with our website, Half Chrome, is we like to build tables, right? So if you want to, just kind of look, how does this Air 2 compare to the Mavic 2 Pro, Mavic 2 Zoom, even the Mini, right? The Air 2, we've got them all up here. So if we want to look at, what was I talking about? Bitrate, right? So the Air 2 is 120 megabits per second, 100 on the Mini 2, 100 on the Mavic 2 Pro and Zoom, right? So we've got charts galore on here. So if you want to just kind of know how they compare various things, from price, if you want to look closer at the cameras, how do they compare? If you want to look closer at some of the flight modes and stuff, we've got that stuff for you here too. But let's talk about this camera, right? So yes, it is a 5.4 K video capable camera. Now the Mavic Air 2 was the first one able to shoot 4K 60, 4K video at 60 frames a second. You can do that with this as well, but you can also shoot 5.4K video. I believe that's at 30 frames a second. I have to double check here. And the reason you'd want to shoot at 5.4K, the higher resolution, isn't because you're going to really be producing videos at 5.4K. It's going to give you more freedom to crop in and zoom in post-production as you're kind of putting those videos together. So that is fantastic. So yes, definite upgrade with the camera. Kind of a nice thing if you get the Fly More package, which you can see behind me, I did, and you get some ND filters with this Air 2. This nice little case, and you're getting 4, 8, 16, and 32. Now, you can't just throw shutters on and expect that's going to improve your video. That's not how shutters work. Chris will get into that a little bit later in a video. So we've got all sorts of videos. What we want to know is, what kind of videos do you want to see on this drone? Of course, we're going to compare it to the Mavic Air 2. I think maybe the best comparison for you might actually be the Evo 2 Pro. A lot of people are saying, well, what about the 1-inch sensor on the Mavic 2 Pro? Well, yeah, sure, it's an apt comparison, but at the end of the day, there were only a couple of things that set that camera apart from this one. All right, it is a Hasselblad camera. Whether or not that matters, I'm not certain. But the Mavic 2 Pro does have a variable aperture. That is not something you're going to get with this. This is a fixed aperture camera, right? F2.8. Yes, F2.8. Just checking my chart. So that's what you're getting on this drone. So really, there are only two things that set that Mavic Air, the Mavic 2 lineup apart from this, and that is the variable aperture and the side obstacle avoidance. You'll notice there are no side sensors here. We've got the goofy ones in the front, we got them in the back, and of course there are sensors on the bottom for this thing, but nothing on the sides. And that's, I think, where they're the most important. And I think what this doesn't have tells us what the Mavic Pro 3 will have. And that is, of course, side sensors, right? The other one did have side sensors. So the Mavic Pro 3 will. I think we're going to get an upgrade in the camera, of course. What that actually means, I'm not sure. The Mavic Pro 2 series just didn't do 4K very well. It didn't do 4K 60. The Mavic 2 Pro really struggled at 4K 30 with overheating. Actually, I think the Mavic 2 Zoom did a better job at 4K. But you're going to get that variable aperture, probably a mechanical shutter, and of course, side obstacle avoidance. Those three things make the Mavic Pro 3 that's probably coming, I don't think anytime soon, but that'll make that your professional quality tool, right? That's going to kind of set it apart here. So let's take a look at the chat here and see what people are asking. So is it really worth buying if I have a Mavic 2 and it's HGT also? LOL. So you have a Mavic 2? No, I don't think there's a reason, to upgrade necessarily. The Mavic 2 is still a good drone, right? If you're talking Mavic 2 Pro, Mavic 2 Zoom, I'm not sure, or even Mavic Air 2, they're all really good quads, fun to fly, and really, yes, is this camera better than the Mavic Air 2? Sure. But for most people, they're not going to notice the difference. So, what DJI is doing is kind of lining their drones up in price points. You got the Mini at 350, the Mini 2 at 450, right? I think the Mini is actually 400. Mini 2 is 450. Then you got the Air 2 at $800, which I think is maybe your best value buy. Then you get this thing at 1,000, and then the Zoom and the Pro at 1,300 and 1,600. I just don't see those being values anymore. They're just not. You know, I used to love the Mavic 2 Zoom. That's my favorite of the drones, but you know, this thing now has zoom up to 8x. Now, 8 times zoom at 1080 is going to be a little bit graining, but nice for lining up shots and getting things kind of dialed in. I played with the zoom a little bit today. It's super fun. One of my favorite features on a drone. I know doing it in post is just as easy, but that is kind of a neat feature. So yeah, just a quality drone. What else are people asking? If the 2S is O3, OcuSync 3, and it is, why do they say an Air 2 controller will work with it? It's a really good question. So the smart controller will also work with it. So when it says, you know, OcuSync 2.0 or 3.0, you know, what does that all really mean? You know, that's just their way of saying they've optimized it for the drone itself. Now, this drone will get you 12,000 meters of range. That's like 7.5 miles. And kind of the difference between these two is this one has 4 antennas versus 2 in the original Air. And I think that's really where your difference is coming. You know, does that am I saying there's no difference in technology? No, there probably is. Maybe it's, you know, it's a software firmware difference somewhere. But the controller is the same. It's the same model controller. I bet, you know, you could probably pair it to either one. This is the 2S controller. The only visible difference is you see the pause button is labeled on here. No pause button labeled on the Mavic Air 2 controller, right? But yeah, they're the same. You can use the smart controller with either one of them. So yes, the smart controller somehow works with OcuSync 2.0 and 3.0. So how different are they? Not sure, right? You know, I think maybe the difference is in latency, because that's what you're getting with the FPV drone. Other questions? What else are people asking here? We'll leave that up there for you. Kira Show's getting the Air 2 tomorrow. That's pretty fun. Is there HDR mode on the Air 2S? Jay Deal wants to know. The answer is yes. There is HDR on this one. Now, I really like the HDR in the Mavic Air 2. I think it does a really nice job, and I think that's partly because of this quad bear sensor. Does, you know, that's kind of one of the things that's really does well. But I'm going to take this thing out sunrise, sunset, and do a comparison with HDR on, with HDR off, and see how they do. So yes, it does have HDR. Tokyo Faison's asking, couldn't you swap the cameras? That's a good question. Probably. I mean, you could. I'm not going to, and it's not like DJI sells the camera separately. You know, once upon a time, people would buy the Mavic 2 Pro and then the Mavic 2 Zoom camera, and then you could swap them, and it just kind of knows what camera's on there. So, yeah, maybe, but it's not for sale just as a camera. So unless you're buying, you know, a drone that somebody crashed and broke an arm and the camera was still good, but that's not something that I would recommend. Let's see what else we got here. I'm looking for cinematic scenery. Yeah, I mean, you're going to be able to get smooth footage from this for sure. Mavic 3 won't be cheap. No, it will not. All right. Gary Van Osdell, right, is interested in the new avoidance sensors and how well they work. He lost his Mini in his tree. And yeah, you're right. Most crashes happen sideways. That just kind of, you know, you're flying sideways and, you know, you can't see it, right? So sure, the sideway avoidance isn't going to help there, but we will do some testing. So it has been upgraded to APAS 4.0, right? And APAS is kind of that system where it just kind of obstacle avoidance system where it notices things and it flies around them. Um, it does have upgraded active track. It does have upgraded um, point of interest. Yeah. So these sensors, and they are angled slightly forward, so that I think that's a little bit more helpful, right? Because otherwise, this is just pointing at the ground, right? So that is definitely a bonus there. Um, so if you guys are wondering, right, I'm going to send a link to this article in the chat here. So if you want to see how specs compare, or if you want to read the article we wrote on the drone itself, I'll throw that in the chat too, so you guys can go ahead and take a peek at it. I did do a quick 60-second review on this drone. Again, I've had it for a day. Ran through two batteries through. But it's fun, and of course I've been following. Everybody knows we've known what this is going to be for a while, so it hasn't been a surprise. So camera low light picture taken, wonder how will be. Yeah, so low light, that is something we're definitely going to test. Sunrise, sunset, we'll see how that works for sure. Rex Ramos Studio is asking, do the goggles work with it? These goggles? The answer is not yet. And that's really disappointing. I do think they will. OcuSync 3.0 works with these, right? So why wouldn't they? I think they're just working some of those bugs out. The motion control of the goggles, I have to reach out to our contact at DJI, but some of my buddies that have already done so say that they are working on making both the goggles and the motion controller compatible with this drone. So I think that's going to come in a future firmware update. Will other drones get goggle compatibility? Probably not, right? So that's going to be for this one. Or motion controller compatibility? I don't think so. But I think in time, we should get that for this drone here. All right, what else do people want to know? Do you have an MA2? Batteries are interchangeable? Yes, they are interchangeable, actually. And if you look at the battery here, you won't be able to see it. I marked them, right? So I put 2S battery 1, but this is, it says right on here, Mavic Air 2 on the battery. I'm not going to be able to zoom in quite close enough, but the batteries are interchangeable. Now, this drone gets a 31-minute flight time, which is actually down 3 minutes from the Mavic Air 2. And there are a couple of reasons. It's a couple ounces heavier, right? And it has some more processing power going on with these obstacle avoidance sensors. So it's doing a little bit more work, and it's a little bit heavier. So you're going to get a little bit less flight time. I think that's the first time DJI has released a drone with less flight time rather than more flight time. All right. So Mavic batteries are interchangeable. Yeah, DJI is really good about updating their firmware and making their drones better, right? This drone will be a better flyer next week and next month and next year because DJI does support the products and they're consistently making them better. They'll find bugs. This was released today, so people will find issues with it and they will go ahead and correct those issues. Does the drone fly fast enough in normal mode to use the front-facing sensors because in sport mode the sensors don't work? Correct. The sensors don't work in sport mode. Actually, I was flying this thing around today and I felt like it was really moving in normal mode. So it is not a dog. Like I remember the Spark flying that thing. It was so slow. But this guy has got plenty of juice in normal mode. But yes, once you go into sport mode, you're not getting obstacle avoidance sensors. So Matt Cundiff, what is up, peeps? What's up, Matt? Hope everyone is doing well today. Yeah, so that's it. If you guys want to know more about this drone, shoot us an email. What do you want to know about this thing? Let me throw our email up on the screen there. Just drones@halfchrome.com. So if you want to know something about this drone, you want us to do a video about something, throw it in there, or, obviously leave a comment on this video. Let's talk about other things coming on the channel. We're, of course, going to be diving into this. Chris is not joining me today because he's en route to a fun location where he's going to do some shoots with the Evo 2 Pro 6K, which, again, we're going to compare it to this. We've got a comparison with the Mavic Air 2 coming. We got a battery test coming. We've got some low light situation shots coming. I want to know what else you guys want to see. What's up, David Martin Graff? Lots of people in the chat. Good to see you guys back. All right, so what else is coming on the channel? Actually, I built this today. This isn't. Look at this tiny little thing. Any guesses what this used to be? What do you think, guys? What did this used to be? Get to focus. What do you guys think this was? Anybody guess? It's this was the Nanohawk turned into a toothpick. Philip M is asking, he doesn't understand why they did not add side sensors. I'll tell you why. Because they want people to buy the Mavic 3 Pro, right? That's why they're not here, right? They are the most important obstacle avoidance sensors. They are. They're not here because they want you to buy the Mavic 3, which is coming. Scottio is eating DJI's lunch when it comes to obstacle avoidance. They're fantastic. This is better, though. This is better. This is a step in the right direction. So we'll get to that. So in Tiny Whoop, Inductrix Pro, those are all good guesses, but was a Emax Nanohawk. We're going to make this. It's now an Emax toothpick. And then check this out. You know what that is on top? It's a speaker. Banggood sent us the Beast Pro 2 with the speaker, right? So like DJI has their Enterprise Mavics with the speaker on top. Well, you can get this thing for like $225, $250 with a speaker. It's got to be great, huh? I'll let you guys know about that. That's down the road. I'm going to spend some more time flying this Mavic. And, of course, it's a little toothpick because I love flying those drones. Let's see what else people want to know. Video transmission is 03. The RC transmission is 02. That makes the smart controller compatible with the latest firmware update. Thank you, Leonard. Right, and that might make some sense. So it's sending 2 signals. It is, of course, sending 2 signals. So your phone's getting the 03 and the RC link is 02. Yeah, that very well could be. We'll see. Side sensor is going to screw up the whole M3 setup. Why? The M2s, the Pro and the Zoom both have side sensors. Maybe figure out how to move the top sensors to the side. You could. Maybe. I'm not pulling this thing apart and doing it and doing that. No. Yeah, the M3 is going to be ridiculous. It's also going to be pricey. I'm thinking 2Gs right off the bat. 03 on the Air 2S is for motion controller and goggles. Yeah. That's a good call. So what are the chances that Air 2S will work with the FPV goggles? I purchased DJI FPV. Yeah, they're working on it. I think that's coming in a firmware update. 03 software upgrade. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, Matt's got his on the way. He bought it at Best Buy this morning. Solid work. Best Buy, it's amazing they're still in business, but DJI is not on these drones, so people will go there and buy them. So, yeah, with some smoke and mirrors. All right, guys, that's it. Short broadcast today. Again, if you want to know something about this drone, you want to see us make a video on this drone, I want to know what you guys want. Let us know, and we will get at it. Hey, thanks for joining us. Good luck, everybody, and happy flying.